All right, so today we're going to be diving into CharTec Academy. It's a training program that claims to be like the way for those managed service providers or MSPs to become like multi-million dollar businesses.
Mhm.
They have this landing page that's all about like, no theory, just battle-tested results kind of thing. And we're here to see if that is hype or the real deal.
My
And we've
favorite.
got some excerpts from their site, some testimonials, even travel info, because apparently location is part of the equation here. But before we get too far into this, let's back up for a second and just make sure we're all on the same page. What exactly is an MSP?
Yeah, so think of an MSP as basically an outsourced IT department for businesses that don't want to handle all of the headaches of technology themselves. So that means they're handling things like network security, data backups, cloud services, user support, the whole nine yards. And it's an industry that is booming, especially with the tech landscape getting more and more complex every day.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's like the Wild West out there. And businesses need a sheriff. So that's where programs like CharTec Academy come in, because they're laser focused on helping businesses thrive as an MSP. And it's not just like generic business advice. This is very specific training. And one of the things that they emphasize is that this is built by MSPs for MSPs. So these guys aren't just armchair quarterbacks. They actually walked the walk. They've built successful MSPs themselves.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes this particular program so interesting. Because you are getting advice from people who have actually been in the trenches, like the difference between reading a cookbook and learning from a seasoned chef.
Yeah, exactly.
But, you brought up a good point earlier about the whole no theory thing. While I do value practical experience, I also wonder if they incorporate any kind of theoretical frameworks that help MSPs kind of adapt as the market changes because the tech world moves so fast.
That's a really good point. Yeah, you do
That's
need
not
to be able to adapt. You can't just stay static. And it looks like they break down their program into 5 key areas: sales, marketing, operations, finance, and HR. So let's jump into sales first, because they highlight some common struggles that a lot of MSPs face. They talk about burning through leads, missing quotas, feeling like they're constantly battling objections, which sounds very stressful.
Yeah, and that's what I hear from a lot of MSPs. They're really good at the technology part, but when it comes to sales, they struggle with things like building trust with potential clients or really digging into their pain points and presenting solutions in a way that
Yeah,
resonates.
it's got to be the whole package. So let's move on to marketing then, because they asked this very interesting question. Do you know how to speak your ideal client's language? Which is a great question to ask, because if you don't, you're just kind of shouting into the void.
Right. And marketing for MSPs is especially tricky because
Mm.
you've got to understand all that technical jargon, but you also need to be able to communicate effectively. To business owners who might not be as tech savvy,
Exactly. It's a fine line to walk. Okay, so next up is operations. And operations is all about making sure things run smoothly, right?
absolutely.
And they talk about things like overwhelmed techs, ticket backlogs, and just like figuring out how to keep your team motivated and productive.
Operations are the backbone of any successful MSP. If you don't have streamlined systems in place, everything can kind of fall apart. So I wouldn't be surprised if they recommend certain tools and technologies that help with things like project management and ticketing systems.
Yeah, for sure. All right, then we come to the money part, finance, which I think can be intimidating for a lot of people, especially new business owners. But they're talking about things like budgeting and billing, figuring out where to invest for growth.
This is where some MSPs, especially newer ones, they really trip up. Because it's not just about bringing in the revenue, it's also about managing that cash flow, pricing your services correctly and strategically, and making those smart financial decisions that are going to support the business in the long term.
Yeah, you got to have a solid foundation. Okay, and last but not least is HR, which finding and keeping those top-notch employees is tough in any industry, but especially for MSPs because they need those really specialized in-demand skills. And they talk about things like DISC assessments and building a really strong company culture that attracts and retains the best people.
Yeah, and creating that kind of environment where people feel valued and challenged, I think that's super important for employee retention.
Absolutely. So we've got a good sense of what they cover in the program, but the big question is, does it actually work? Do they have any proof in the pudding?
Well, they do feature quite a few glowing testimonials on their website. There's one from Michael O., who says that CharTec basically provided the missing piece for his MSP
Yeah.
and that it was instrumental in their growth.
And there's another one from Jim Watson, who was apparently blown away by the relevance and the practicality of what he learned. And he even said that it was better than any trade show that he had ever been to, which is a pretty bold statement.
It is. But testimonials can be very powerful, especially when it comes to these training programs. Because It's one thing to hear about the curriculum, but it's another to hear from people who have actually gone through the program and seen some tangible results. Of course, you always have to take those with a grain of salt.
Sure.
But these testimonials are definitely intriguing.
Yeah, for sure. Now they have this section on their website called Is Academy for Me?
Mm.
And it seems like they're casting a pretty wide net in terms of who they're targeting.
Yeah, it seems like they're really open to MSPs at all different stages,
Yeah.
from those who are brand new, just starting out, to companies that are more established, looking to scale their operations. They even mention those MSPs that are transitioning from a break-fix model, which means they used to just fix problems as they popped up, to a more proactive managed services approach.
Huh.
And I think that inclusivity is smart because they're recognizing that different MSPs are going to have unique needs and challenges.
Yeah, for sure. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach. Okay, and now for the part that I wasn't quite expecting when we started looking into this. The travel information. They go into a lot of detail.
It is surprisingly thorough. I almost wonder if they're trying to overcompensate for something.
Maybe the location. Because
Mm.
the academy is in Bakersfield, California. Now,
Mm.
it does have an airport, a smaller local airport with direct flights from major hubs. But it's not exactly like a bustling metropolis.
Okay, that's fair.
But they do acknowledge that some people might prefer to drive, so they helpfully list driving times from major cities like San Diego, San Francisco, even Boise.
Boise. Ah,
That's commitment, but hey, maybe it's a scenic drive. What I find interesting, though, is that they provide all these specific travel estimates. It's like they're really thinking about the attendees and any potential hurdles they might face.
yeah, it definitely gives off a very welcoming kind of vibe. Like they're saying, hey, we know getting to Bakersfield might be a journey, so let us try to make it as smooth as possible.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We talked about what an MSP is, the MSP for MSPs approach. The 5 key areas that they focus on, those testimonials, who this academy is for, and even those very thorough travel details. So what are your initial impressions?
Well, honestly, it's a bit of a mixed bag for me. On the one hand, I like that emphasis on those practical battle-tested strategies and the fact that they're really catering to MSTs at all different stages of their business. Those testimonials, they're pretty compelling, even though we should take them with a grain of salt. And all that detail in the travel information. While it is a little bit over the top, it does speak to their commitment to the attendee experience. But I'm still curious to see how they balance all that practical experience with evolving market trends. And I'd like to kind of dig deeper into some of those battle-tested strategies that we keep hearing about.
Yeah, agreed. It's all well and good to talk the talk, but I want to see if they can actually walk the walk. So we'll be back in just a moment to dissect some more of the details of their program and see if CharTec Academy can truly live up to the hype.
Welcome back.
Hmm.
Okay, so we're continuing to kind of dig into this CharTec Academy, and one of the things that really kind of jumped out at me is this whole idea of standing out from the herd. The MSP market, it's getting crowded out there. So how do you make your business shine?
Yeah, it's a great point. You can't just be another MSP offering the same generic services
Yes.
as everyone else out there. You need something that's going to make you stand out. You need a unique value proposition that makes you irresistible to your ideal clients.
Right, you need that special sauce.
Yeah.
That makes you the go-to MSP.
Exactly. And that's where CharTec Academy, I think, really hits the mark. Because they're not just teaching you the nuts and bolts of running an MSP, but they're also pushing you to develop a distinct identity and a brand that really resonates with those ideal clients.
Yeah. It's like they're saying, don't just be an MSP, be the MSP. Yeah, it's a bold approach, and I'd be interested to see how they actually guide MSPs through that process. Because it's one thing to say stand out, but it's another thing to actually give them the tools and strategies to make it happen.
Right, exactly. And speaking of tools and strategies, we keep hearing about this battle-tested approach, but what does that actually mean? What kind of insider knowledge are they actually sharing?
Well, I think for one thing, they're probably going really deep into the specifics of sales and marketing, but specifically for MSPs. So think things like how to craft compelling proposals, how to leverage social proof, and how to navigate the often complex world of pricing your services.
Ooh, yeah. Pricing, that can be a tough one. You go hourly,
Yeah.
value-based pricing, subscription models.
Exactly. And there's no one right answer. It really depends on a lot of factors. Your target market, your service, offering your overall business strategy. So CharTec probably helps MSPs figure out what pricing model actually aligns with their goals and makes them both profitable and competitive.
Yeah, it's got to be a win-win. Now, on the operations side of things, I imagine they probably have some pretty slick systems in place for managing all the moving parts.
Right. And I wouldn't be surprised if they recommend certain tools and technologies that help streamline things like ticketing, project management,
Yeah.
and even client communication. Because efficiency is key for MSPs. The more they can streamline those operations, the more clients they can serve, and ultimately the more profitable they can become.
Plus, happy techs mean happy clients, right?
100%. Speaking of happy clients, though, I'm curious to see how CharTec addresses the challenge of client acquisition and retention. Because the MSP market is so competitive, how do you not only attract new clients, but keep those clients coming back for more?
Right. You don't want to be constantly chasing new leads. You want those loyal, long-term
I'm
clients.
sure they'll emphasize building strong relationships, going beyond just fixing those technical issues, and becoming a trusted advisor to your clients.
Right. So it's not just about being a tech whiz, it's about understanding their business needs and their goals.
Exactly. And anticipating their needs and offering solutions, even before problems arise.
It's like being proactive.
And I wouldn't be surprised if CharTech also talks about the importance of nicking down. Instead of trying to be everything to everyone, they probably encourage MSPs to focus on a specific industry or a specific type of client, which allows them to develop that deeper expertise and really tailor their services accordingly.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because you can really become an expert in that particular area. Now, this all sounds great in theory, but let's be real, there's no magic bullet when it comes to business.
True, but CharTech Academy does seem to be offering a potent combination of practical knowledge, expert guidance, and that supportive community.
Yeah, and that community aspect is something we haven't really touched on yet. They have a private Facebook group for alumni, right?
Right, and they could be such a valuable resource because MSPs can connect with their peers who are going through some of the same challenges. They can share best practices, get feedback and support.
It's like having a built-in network of MSP buddies.
Exactly. And that camaraderie and shared learning can be so beneficial, especially for those who are newer to the MSP world. Or maybe they're feeling a little bit isolated in their journey.
Yeah, it can be tough to go it alone. Now, they do have this kind of quirky thing going on with their pricing. Remember how they waived the registration fee?
Yeah, the all you have to do is get here kind of policy. Bold move for sure.
It definitely catches your attention, but is it a genuine gesture of goodwill? Or is it just a really clever marketing tactic to kind of lower that barrier to entry?
I think it could be a little bit of both. I
Right.
mean, on the one hand, it does show that they're confident in the value they provide. They're basically saying, hey, we're so sure you're going to love our program
Yeah.
that the only cost is your time and travel.
Which, let's be honest, is still a pretty significant investment, especially if you're driving all the way from Boise.
Right. But I do think it shifts the focus away from the upfront cost and puts it more on the potential return on investment, which at the end of the day is really what matters most to business owners.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe they throw in some free snacks for those road trips.
I hope so.
Okay, so we've explored the content, the community, the battle-tested strategies, this idea of differentiating yourself in the marketplace, and their unique pricing model. But there's one big elephant in the room that we haven't really addressed. The location.
Bakersfield.
Yeah.
It's not exactly a top destination for business conferences, is it?
Not really, but hey, maybe that's part of their charm. You know, they're not trying to be flashy or trendy. They're just focused on delivering solid content and building a strong community.
Right. And they're very upfront about it. And they're providing very detailed travel information to help attendees kind of plan accordingly.
Yeah, they're not trying to hide it. And I do find it oddly endearing that they include those estimated driving times.
Yeah, it's a little quirky.
Maybe they're trying to spin Bakersfield's remoteness into a positive thing. Like they're creating a more intimate, focused learning environment.
Yeah, like a retreat for MSP minds.
Exactly. So maybe there's a method to their madness after all.
I think so.
All right, so we've unpacked a lot here. We've gone deep into the details of CharTec Academy's program. We've talked about their unique approach to pricing and community building. And we even pondered the pros and cons of their unconventional location.
And we've considered whether their battle-tested strategies are really valuable or if it's just marketing hype.
Right. So the big question remains, is CharTec Academy the key to unlocking that next level of growth for your MSP? We're going to tackle that question head on in our final segment, where we're going to weigh the pros and cons, analyze that potential return on investment, and help you decide if this program is worth the journey, both literally and figuratively. So stick with us.
Welcome back to the final stretch of our deep dive on CharTec Academy. So we've really scrutinized their program, their promises, even that peculiar location. Now it's decision time. Is this really the MSP game changer that they claim to be? You know, I think when we weigh the evidence, it's pretty clear they've got a program that's laser focused on the challenges that MSPs face. And it's created by people who have actually walked the walk and built a successful MSP themselves. So that's a strong starting point.
Yeah, the credibility is definitely a big plus. And they're not just teaching general business principles, right? They're really getting into the weaves of sales, marketing operations, finance, and HR, all tailored to the MSP world.
And they seem to really emphasize those practical strategies over those theoretical frameworks, which I think could be really appealing to a lot of MSPs, especially those who are looking for that actionable advice, something that they can implement right away.
Right, they want to see results. Now, what about their emphasis on differentiation? That whole idea of helping MSPs find their niche and stand out from the crowd.
That's such an important piece of the puzzle, especially in a market that's becoming increasingly crowded. CharTec seems to understand that it's not just enough to be good at the tech stuff. You also need to be able to articulate your value proposition really clearly. And you have to connect with those ideal clients.
Yeah, you got to speak their language. And then there's that community aspect, having that network of like-minded MSPs to bounce ideas off of, to share challenges, to celebrate wins together. I mean, that's got to be really valuable.
Absolutely. It can be a lonely journey trying to grow an MSP. So having a supportive community to lean on can make a huge difference. That private Facebook group that they offer, I think that's a great way to foster those connections and create that sense of camaraderie.
It's like they've created a little ecosystem where MSPs can thrive. Now let's talk about some of the potential downsides. The elephant in the room, or maybe we should say the oil rig in the desert, is the location. Bakersfield isn't exactly known for its bustling conference scene.
Yeah, that's true. But, maybe that's part of the appeal. Maybe it's not such a bad thing. It's not a glitzy, distracting kind of environment. It's a place where you can really hunker down and focus on learning and connecting with other people. And remember, they're being upfront about the location. They're providing a lot of detailed information about travel to help people plan accordingly.
Yeah, they're not trying to hide anything. I still find it endearing that they include those estimated driving times.
It's a little bit quickie.
But hey, maybe it's a scenic drive.
Maybe they're trying to turn Bakersfield's remoteness into a positive, like create this really intimate, focused learning environment.
Yeah, kind of like a retreat for MSP minds.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's cut to the chase. The million-dollar question, literally, is this program worth the investment?
That's the tough part, right? It really depends. For someone who's brand new to the MSP world, who's hungry for guidance for those practical strategies for connections, this could be a total game changer. And even for an established MSP that's maybe struggling to scale their business or differentiate themselves in the marketplace, the insights that they share could be exactly what they need. Do your research, explore their website, really look at the curriculum, maybe reach out to some alumni and get their perspective.
Solid advice. So we've given you the tools to analyze. But ultimately, the decision is yours. It's your business. It's your journey. And that's what we love about these deep dives. We equip you with the knowledge, we spark your curiosity. And then you get to take the reins.
Knowledge is power.
Yeah.
But it's the application of that knowledge that really leads to success.
Well said. So to our listeners, thank you so much for joining us on this journey. As we explore the world of CharTec Academy, we hope you've gained some valuable insights. Remember, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep pushing your MSP to new heights. Until next time.